Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dali Museum. I am Joy Garrett, like happiness, joy, and thank you for being here with us. I have the honor to introduce our speaker today for the lecture, Why We Dream. I know you're all excited. I saw you at the door, so I heard many great things. Tonight, I'll be introducing Velva Lee Heraty, graduate from Loyola University, Chicago, with a concentration in clinical social work, specializing in trauma and family systems. Several years later, she received her psychology certificate for the C.G. Jung Institute, Evanston, Illinois, with a focus on dream analysis. She has written 11 research and white papers and a book. The dream belongs to the dreamer. Velva has presented nearly 400 workshops, trainings, and seminars in 8 different countries. She was also tapped as a resource for the National Nightmare Hotline, created as a response to the trauma of 9/11. Locally, Velva is known as Dream Mama, and she wrote a column for Creative Loafing for 3 years. Since COVID, she has built an online presence helping people heal, grow, and thrive. She lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, with her 2 little panthers, Scarlet and Red. Tonight, in conjunction with our special exhibit, The Shape of Dreams, she is going to tackle the subject of Jungian perspective. Please join me in welcoming Velva Lee Heraty.
I've got mics in my pocket. I've got mics on the podium. So here we are, pondering the challenge and mystery. And that sounds like such an old word to talk about dreams, but that's what we're doing tonight. But we're doing it from a different perspective. I'm a Jungian. I've been a Jungian for like 30 years now, but I started looking at other contributors to the field of dreams. And I was researching nightmares. I've got a whole presentation on nightmares. And it was funny, when you sort of open up your mind to other things, if you just sort of take it all in, things started to connect for me. And that's why I'm making this presentation today, because I think I can answer that question. Can I answer it scientifically, brilliantly? No, but who cares? As long as it gets an answer, right? And I've committed to bringing dream work to the mainstream. I made that commitment about 20 years ago because the dream community was very elite. And there were so many people I knew that dreamed, so many of my clients dreamed, but they were never in the circle of dreamers. So I got my Jungian lexicon, because you really needed that, and started going to Toastmasters International, and started to read to all the Toastmaster fellows my book. And if I looked up and they were all scowling or looking like this or wondering, I said, I got to write down. So it took me like 3 years to write it down. I was aiming for a freshman in the high school level. And I think I nailed it, but I know I did because I've done a lot of work with teenagers, and I've even did dream work with 4 and 5-year-olds. So I think that's my legacy, bringing dream work to the mainstream. So we're going to talk about why we dream. I got to get all my tools here. Make sure they work. Well, this should work. Okay. Here I was going to blame it, right? Okay. All right, I'm presenting with my alter ego. I'm a Gemini, so I'm allowed to have an alter ego. And that's Dream Mama. And matter of fact, more people in St. Pete know me by Dream Mama than by my real name. So I wrote for Creative Loafing for 3 years. I wrote a column called Ask Dream Mama. And the producer didn't like my name, my first name. So I said, well, what would you call me? And he said, how about Dream Mama? And I thought, that's really cool. I like that. So I've become Dream Mama, and it's kind of a nice alter ego to have because she's a lot nicer than I am. So, but the mission tonight is to bring dream work to the mainstream. That's my mission. The guiding principle, to explain it simply. Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it or understand it well enough. And when I sit a lot with my colleagues, and they can't get off the dime of paraphrasing a lot of the terminology. So I think that that's a lesson that I learned that helped me write my book and bring dream work to the mainstream. We're going to do something different tonight, something I thought about. I had this whole presentation nailed last weekend, and I redid the whole thing because, frankly, I had a dream. And I had a dream of community. It was kind of it was like a world with like kind of things spinning around, and at first I thought it was all the satellites. But I think it was what was bothering me, or what was bothering my alter ego, was this wasn't inclusive enough. So what are we going to do? Tonight we're going to create a temenos. And temenos is a sacred space. It's a Greek term. It was one of Jungian's favorite terms. It's a sanctuary, a sacred place. And out there, there's people next door, there's people in the room, and there are hundreds of people right now watching the live stream. And how do I bring them all together? How do I create a space for them where they can be part of this? They're not physically here, but I want them to feel like they are. So that was a challenge. So I thought, okay. Then I said, well, I'll just show them a picture of the Dali. And then I realized they don't even know where St. Pete is. I didn't know where St. Pete was when I moved here. So I thought, is it near Tampa? No, it's near Miami. No, where is it? So it's not on the headliners yet. So for all of you out there, this is where the Dali is. St. Petersburg, Florida, on Tampa Bay, that little star in the middle, that's where the museum is. And I want you to imagine that you're all here in Florida, sitting here amongst all of us. And it's not hard to imagine, just close your eyes. Just close your eyes and imagine that you're with us now. And you will be if you imagine it. There's the Dali when it was being built, 2010. It already had promising, didn't it? Spectacular. Spectacular. Okay, so this is it being built. So imagine you're in St. Pete with me and my little doggie, Miss Nina, and you're watching the Dali be built. And if you close your eyes, you can do that. Now here's the Dali Museum today. Whoops. It's stunning. It's stunning. Just imagine that you're here. Imagine that you're walking up the sidewalk, walking around. That's the view from the garden. And be here with us. Be here physically with us in your imagination. And that's very Jungian, okay? I think it's very Dali-esque too. Okay. Here's the floor plan. You're in the building, right? You've walked up and you're looking around, you're seeing all the cool stuff out there. See it down in the left-hand corner where the little point is? That's where we are. So you're here with us, and I won't forget that you're here, okay? And I'm going to give you information where you can email me questions long after this presentation is over. And I don't care where you live. I know people in Europe are watching tonight. So I want everyone to sort of join me in the spirit of inclusivity and bring a sacred space and a semenos into this presentation. Because it's a special presentation, it's designed for the museum. First time I presented it. Okay, I'll get there. The other thing I'm doing that I feel very strongly about, and this is in the past year of my life, and I think it's something to do with aging. I've become very interested in spirit guides, spirit animals. I read a book by a Jungian woman named Barbara Hanna. She devoted the whole book to spirit animals. How are they? What are they? What do they do for you? Why are they even in existence? And it is over and beyond the Native American concept, and I'll tell you why. The word totem came to this country from England, and it was spelled T-O-T-U-M. And so actually the word totem is from British. But the idea of gathering figures on a totem pole, they started playing games back when we had our first visitors. And they played games constructing all these different animals. But over time, the idea of having a spirit animal as a companion, I worked with a little boy once who had a spirit animal. And he said, I never feel alone anymore. So there's something about it. So spirit animals are psychological resources to support, bolster, compensate, encourage, celebrate, humor, and inform whoever evokes them. Everyone in this room can evoke a spirit animal right now. Everyone in the internet can evoke a spirit animal. You can evoke a spirit animal wherever you are, whenever you are. All you have to do is just evoke it. It'll show up. Well, for Why We Dream, I evoke the ibis, the turtle, the owl, and the black panther. Each brought their certain energies to help me figure things out and create sort of something that had, more depth, I guess, is what I was looking for. The ibis goes straight up a mountain. Stability, balance, and determination. So that's the qualities that I wanted from them. The turtle, which is my primary totem animal. Grounded, stable, patient. The owl, wisdom, intuition, independence. Now just think about this for yourself now. The black panther is going to be my bodyguard. Strength, agility, and perception. Now I found a spirit animal for Dali. I couldn't believe I found it. As soon as I saw it, I knew who it was for. Do you want to see it? Okay, we're going to count down from 10. I'm going to build up a little mystery about this. Who's going to count with me? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, perfect. It gets even better. I just love this guy. It's the Inca tern. It's the only member of the genus Lacerta, okay? This uniquely plumaged bird breeds on the coast of Peru and Chile. It used to be restricted to the Humboldt Current. How many of you have been anything near the Humboldt Current or the coast of South America? Okay, it's just amazing. It's a river that's bitter cold and it comes up from the Arctic. But a very creative, resourceful tern. In 2021, a single Inca tern successfully made the south shores of Oahu and Hawaii and now calls it home. I don't want to get into, the issues about all our species moving around because of climate change. But I think it's remarkable that this fellow, this tern, I don't know if it's a male or female, managed to get to Hawaii and is now calling it home. So, give him one more look at him. Hey, I just wanted to give him a name. If you were going to give him a name, what would you call him? Okay, perfect.
Or Sally.
Okay. We'll see you later. Okay, so what's your spirit animal? Think about the earth, the sky, the sea, under the sea, on the top of the mountain. Think about your feelings. Think about times like that you might need a bolster. You might need to feel like you're not alone or that you've got some support somewhere in this crazy world, because guess what? We're all on tilt, every single one of us. Think about your needs. If you had an injury and couldn't walk, of course, you have a cane, right? Well, these are psychological canes, if you will. These are psychological aids. So what do you need? What do you want to envision? What do you want to see and hold in your arms and, have a companion? But more importantly, think about your life purpose. Who's going to get you there? There's not a lot of help around anymore. I got news for you. But you can get help. You can create help. You can manufacture help with your imagination and your willingness to just sort of surrender all the restrictions that are put upon us. And you're going to leave out here and you might talk to somebody that wasn't here about a spirit animal and they're going to think you're a little crazy. But you know what? That's a good thing. We all need to be a little crazy now, okay? Thinking outside the box. So we're getting on to the real presentation, the serious stuff. Why we dream. Why, since the beginning of time, there's now 8 billion people on the earth. We all dream 4 to 6 times a night. If you multiply that, do you know how much dream energy is flying around the globe? That's a lot of dream energy. So why? Why, since the beginning of time, when evolution has occurred, when Darwinism has occurred, when all these talk about being adaptable, doing this and doing that, and why, to this day, from the beginning, we're still dreaming the same way. Nothing has changed. And that's a big question. Why do you suppose that is? And that's what I started to wonder when I was looking at nightmares. The functionality of a dream. Everybody thinks it's romantic. Oh, I had this dream, or I dreamed of a new car, whatever. But the actual dream itself, the thing that occurs in your unconscious 4 to 6 times a night, you cannot control. You can't stop it, you can't start it. I'm talking about a classic dream. So why? Why do you suppose that's happened? Why do you wake up sometimes with your heart's pounding because you had what we call a big dream? Or you have that same nagging dream over and over and over again. I call it the nagging mother dream. Put on your shoes, put on your galoshes, don't forget your scarf, nag, nag, nag. And then, of course, the nightmare. So this is provocative. This is something I started thinking about, and I know that nobody else is. And so I'm hoping I have other people have a dialogue someday about this. But that's what we're going to look at. Now, you already met me. That's me. Hi. Okay, this is Jung. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst and a physician who founded analytical psychology. He was mentored by Sigmund Freud, I have a whole presentation on Freud and Jung, too. They had an incredible relationship. It was just incredible. Their first conversation lasted 13 hours. They found each other. Two people in the whole world back then that were able to talk the same language. That's pretty impressive. But of course, as life would have it, the student, or the son, I put that in quotes, has to leave, has to grow up. He started to question his mentor. What about old people? What about middle age? And they had a lot of conflict over that. Then one day, they had an argument. Freud fainted. Jung went off to seclusion, and he stayed in seclusion for many years. That's how powerful this relationship was. But it birthed why we're here tonight. We're way past the edible, folks, okay? So he contributed the term archetypes, the collective unconscious, complexes, the shadow. The word synchronicity is his word. I often wanted to write a play, but I imagine sometimes Jung being Dali's analyst, what those two could give, those two would have a hell of a good time. But it was not meant to be. So here was my new information. When I was researching nightmares, I ran across Dr. Ernest Hartman, who's famous international researcher in the intellectual community, not somebody a layperson would know. But he specialized in dreams, sleep disorders, mental functioning processes, and of course, nightmares. Now his reports, I waded through his reports and tried to pull out as much as I could to bring with you tonight. 2 to 5% of the adult population report nightmares. Often, or always. And 8 to 30% have nightmares at least once a month. Now we're getting back to the original question, why do we dream? And now why do we dream? And when we do dream, why do we have a nightmare? Why do we have a big dream? Why do we have a nagging dream? These are, I think, important questions. If you're looking at mental health and you're looking at people that are traumatized, about 4% of parents report that their preschool children had frequent nightmares. And I was with a group of 4 and 5-year-olds. I made them a little coloring book so they could talk about the boogeyman. The one little boy said, the last question is, okay, if the boogeyman were here, what would you say to him? And he was like really proud. He put his hands up in the hips. He says, I'd say, hey, pick on somebody your own size. And this kid was 5 years old. Now, guess what he did? And he didn't know it. Can you translate what I'm saying? Guess what he did? In that simple exercise, he conquered a fear. It's that simple. All he had to do was face it and say, hey, get out of here. Pick on somebody your own size. He was 5 years old. And he drew a monster. When he was drawing the monster, it was a pretty scary one. So if a 5-year-old can confront his nightmares, we all can. We just need to figure out how to do it and what method works best. And why we're even having nightmares. Whoops. Okay. So I found this next thing. Nightmares increase in frequency in pre-adolescent and adolescent girls, especially girls. Why do you suppose that is? What are girls facing in pre-adolescent that boys aren't? Who has daughters? All right? What do they go through that boys don't go through? All right? Just think about it. Why would young girls have more nightmares than young boys? These questions need to be answered. Now, Hartman, if you experience some kind of traumatic event, the chance is you have a nightmare right afterwards. And guess what? 2 months ago, I had a traumatic event, and guess what? 2 nights later, I did have a nightmare. And I never thought I'd ever have a traumatic event again in my whole life, and I did. Hartman suggests that nightmares point to an emotional integration function for dreams in general. Now, second, emotional integration. What could that possibly mean? Dreams are just fun, aren't they? How could they help us function? But he found out how, and he told me, and I'm telling you, okay? The regulation theory of emotional integration, meaning having these feelings and integrating them into yourself, your sense of self, your psychology. Integration. You don't reject them. You don't deny them. You integrate them. And that's part of the growth process. That's part of growing up and being a full person. Your sense of self is enriched by integrating the things you've feared, the things that you are going to fear. Matter of fact, fear isn't even real. Fear is, it hasn't happened yet. I'm afraid of, well, it's not even happened yet. But this is how our mind, our cultures, and a lot of people put things in people's heads when they're very young that they don't let go of. I call them hardwires. Got clients that says, that's your hardwire. And guess what? Once it's there, it's hell to get rid of. So the regulation theory, you have a fear, you do what the little 5-year-old boy did, you face it, it's integrated. And then next time he's afraid, he might say, hey, I got rid of the boogeyman, I can get rid of this fear too. It's a confidence builder. Nobody ever built confidence by succumbing to their fears. This is really important to understand when you're helping somebody or you're talking to your kids or whomever. You know, life calls for itself, people. Life calls for itself. And you're going to answer. People are going to answer. They're supposed to answer. But if they've got all these fears and all these anxieties, and they've got people around them telling, oh no, that's no good. I started walking Miss Nina, my little doggie, 11 o'clock at night. You know how many people reached out to me, don't do that. Something bad is going to happen to you. And I met some wonderful homeless people. I met Bicycle Joe, who would ride down the bike every night. There you are, walking your doggie. It was delightful. I wasn't afraid, but I knew I wasn't afraid, but so many other people were afraid for me. And fear is controlling so many of us. It's really sad. When that need is not met, the need for the emotional regulation, when that fear is not emotionally integrated and regulated and brought into the rest of the consciousness, because now it's conscious. It used to be unconscious, right? When it's not met, what happens? Eventually the person becomes neurotic, or they're stockpiling. People stockpile these things, they don't go away. And then they come back at the worst convenient times. They come back when you're vulnerable. It's like they know, you know. But they do know, because why? Because you know. It's part of you now. It's a nightmare. Okay, so you've had a trauma. We've all had a trauma. Living through COVID has been traumatic. Losing all the people we've lost, living in fear, getting COVID and then realizing it might never go away. So trauma, right in the middle of this diagram here is the coping mechanisms. Everybody's trying to figure out how to cope. I spent the first 6 months of 2020 trying to figure out how to live. And I'm not alone in that. So we have trauma, and then we have trauma. And it's got a whole range. Okay. So I'm going to introduce you to homeostasis. This is a partial answer to why we dream, why we have nightmares, why we have repetitive dreams, why we have big dreams, where our heart pounds. Homeostasis is a fancy word, a scientific word for centeredness or balance or high functioning. The goal of every living thing is to reach homeostasis. In biology, it's the state of steady internal physical and chemical conditions. Maintain living systems. That's how the living systems are maintained. You've got a beautiful flower, you can either put it in the sun and water it, or you can put it in the shade and watch it miserably die. This is the condition of optimal functioning for any organism, homeostasis. It's not about being in love. It's not about winning the jackpot. That's not going to get you homeostasis. Probably going to work against it. Just think for a minute what would happen if your life is suddenly unstable. We're all sitting here and suddenly the whole room tilts. You get out to walk and you can't, the sidewalk is not stable. You sit down to have a dinner and your table, it wobbles. Isn't that maddening? It's one of my pet peeves. What happens if your limbs weren't coordinated? There's a reason we have almost 2 of everything. Because we have to be in balance. We cannot function if we're not in balance, not just physically, mentally. And this is what Hartman and Jung said in his own language, not Hartman came after Jung, not that much after, but anyway, I don't even know if they ever met. But the point I'm trying to make is they were both on the same page about integration. Integrating your whole system. Back when Jung started his practice and everything, you had the physical doctor and then you had the mental doctor. There was nobody that did both because they weren't seen as an entity. So try to imagine your life wobbling. So Jung did not perceive psyche and soma as separate entities, the body and the mind. He postulated that psyche and soma were expressions of a single unified totality. Now we're back to balance again. This unified totality can self-regulate. That's what we're supposed to be. I was trained to look at a patient's self-regulation, self-soothing, self-efficacy. What can they do for themselves? Or where do they need help? The whole goal is to maintain homeostasis. You don't get too crazy, but you don't get too sad. You know, you're on this even keel, this band in between 2 extremes. But homeostasis is where dreams are helping us. They're a tool to help us develop homeostasis. psychologically. Excuse me. So we have the person and situation model. That's what I learned in social work school. Okay, here's this person. What situation is he in? Look at genetics, personality, life stage, and that's the stages of Erickson, birth to death stages, the 8 stages of man. And you look at the person's history. You say, okay, here's this guy with all these things going on in this situation. How do you help them? I'll tell you a story. I also had a certification for addictions. I was starting to flirt with dream work just as I finished my certification for addictions. I was listening to a client tell me a dream, and I'm sort of like in my headspace, and I realized he was going to relapse. He had been sober 8 years, and the anniversary was coming up. And I realized just then and there in that room that this man was going to relapse. And I was startled. I startled myself. I didn't know what to say or what to do because this was the first time that ever happened to me. But I had to do something. So I believe in the direct approach. I said, "Are you thinking about drinking again?" And he took umbrage. And then he said to me, "Well, after 8 years, I deserve a drink." He had a dream that indicated he was going to drink again. And I had 3 clients like that over the years. I wrote a paper on it. It's called The Analysis of a Relapse Dream. And I'm telling you, there's gifts in all of this. There's gifts if you can sort of suspend judgment, just sit back and take in what you hear. More importantly, what you feel. I knew that I was alarmed that day. And that made me help him. The 3 guiding principles of dream work. The dream belongs to the dreamer. Dreams are symbolic. Don't literalize them. Don't moralize about dream content. Dreams are neither good nor bad, they just are. As real as they seem, they're not. And everything in a dream is symbolic. So your father's not your father, your mother's not your mother. You have to suspend all that and get into the symbolic nature of the dream. We all know what dreams are, but just remember they're involuntary, they're psychic, they're independent and spontaneous. You can't control them. Dreams are direct messages to the unconscious part of the true self. The true self is the authentic self. The true self is the self that has homeostasis. If the world would just let them alone, leave me alone. I'm trying to get homeostasis. Dreams are always seeking to express something the dreamer does not know nor understand because it's presented in this symbolic nature. But symbols that doesn't mean you can't analyze it or figure it out or relate to it. Dreams are attempts to integrate the ego conscious and unconscious for stability, balance, and wholeness. It's that simple. Dreams are a tool for homeostasis. It's a vehicle. That's why they haven't changed since the beginning of time, because the need for them hasn't changed. From the beginning of time, we've all needed to be stable and centered so that we could survive. Archetypes are another thing. This is a huge thing There's a whole presentation just on archetypes. But these are structural elements of the human psyche. We all see archetypes. If I say, oh, there goes a rock star, you would immediately have an image of a rock star. There's a biker. We conjure up these images, really. There's so many modern, we're creating archetypes today. They're inherited with the brain structure, but they're psychic. They're common to all. We all have archetypes. They're cross-cultural. Everybody has them, all over the world. Jung studied these relentlessly. His archetypes were the self, the anima, the animus, and the shadow. But there's secondary archetypes. The hero, the lover, the jester, the explorer, the outlaw, the everyman, the caregiver, the innocent, the sage, and the artist. What's missing on this list, everyone? See something missing? Okay. There's no women. There's no female archetypes. Sorry, this is a repetition of that slide. Okay, here are the archetypes in this cool little colorful thing. But more importantly, I want to go to understanding defense structures. There are 7 primary defense structures. We all have them. Everything I'm sharing with you tonight, everybody out there next door, everybody has a defense structure. And it can either be primitive, like, I didn't do it. The little boy, when something breaks, the mom says, who broke that? Oh, the cat did. Blatant denial. But they often follow a developmental model. The older and more wisdom you get, the sexier your defense structure is. You rationalize and you spin an amazing story on why you didn't get your homework done, or you didn't get the assignment that boss gave you done. They're common to all. They're in a place, they're there to protect the ego from the painful truth, especially trauma. Now we're getting back to homeostasis now. The presentation focuses on defense structures as they relate to why we dream, as dreams are regulated by the defense structure. They're not regulated by the psyche or the unconscious. As soon as a dream comes up that's disturbing, who shows up next? The defense structure. Okay? So that's also very, very important. So we have 3 things. We have dreams, we have defense structures, we have homeostasis. But the answer to the question is why we dream is we have to get homeostasis. And one of the ways we get it is through dreams. I had a trauma, I dreamed about it, I forgot about it. I knew I dreamed about it, I knew immediately what the dream was, and I said, oh, and I figured it out. But the point was it was over. I integrated it. I emotionally regulated it. This is what all I'm doing tonight, is trying to help you sort of take a new look at your nightmares, your disturbing dreams, your repetitive dreams, and your big dreams, the ones you wake up in the middle of the night and you don't forget. I'm going to breeze through these last things because I want to leave room for question and answers. I always run over it. I can't help it. There's so much to say. This is like a 3-hour presentation. Rationalization, displacement, regression. All right, here they are. Rationalization, using excuses to explain away threatening circumstances. Displacement, the transfer of negative thoughts and feelings onto somebody else. That's called projection. Regression, returning to a previous level of development, getting little. A lot of people, when they go home for the holidays, they tell me they feel like they're 6 or 7 again. Introjection, taking on the negative thoughts and feelings of another without conscious thought. More defense mechanism, reaction formation, behaving in a way opposite of one's true feelings, laughing when you're really hurt. It's a very common one. Sublimation, transforming unacceptable thoughts or needs into acceptable actions. Voluntarism, doing good. Repression, keeping unacceptable thoughts, behaviors, and traumatic events buried in the unconscious. Well, guess who's in the most trouble here, right? The repression person. That was just a chart, we don't need that. Jungian theory on nightmares. Wake up, it's time to pay attention to what's going on in your life. That's a nightmare. That's why I love nightmares. They're a call to action. Sometimes I think we give ourselves nightmares so we can get moving. And nightmares imply you are ready to look at your trauma and challenges and issues. Most importantly, your defense structure is giving you permission to look. It's always a transformational moment. When somebody I'm working with says, I had this nightmare, and then suddenly they're in a new place in their process. They're able to reframe it, reform it, understand it, analyze it. It might take a couple weeks, but it's done, and they've integrated it, and it's no longer. The same happens with repetitive dreams. The moment you figure out why they're bugging you, that's when you stop having them. Just acknowledging trauma is transformational. Homeostasis, remember the thing we all want. Homeostasis cannot be achieved in trauma if trauma goes unhealed. So, why do we dream? You ready for the answer to the big question? After exploring dreams, trauma, and defense structures, it's clear we dream to gain homeostasis, balance, centeredness in our life. Dreams present us with symbols and archetypes to help us heal. Dreams compensate for our unhealed trauma on all levels. Dreams are the portal to deep healing and wholeness. So now, do you know why we dream? Okay, tell me. I want to hear that one word. Thank you. I think I might even been pronouncing it all night. I don't know, but this is it. This is why you dream, and this is why it's important to not, number one, run to a symbol book. No. Never do that, never. That's giving your dream away. The dream belongs to the dreamer, and that's you. The goal of homeostasis, inner peace, peace of mind, a deliberate state of spiritual calm, centeredness, they're all considered to be states where our mind performs at an optimum level with positive outcomes. These are gifts. Your dreaming mind does not want you to fail, to stumble. They want you to achieve this place. Your whole system does. But sometimes life gets in the way and we just can't. And it's getting harder and harder. So there's something needs to be done. And I say a return to dream work, serious dream work, is one of the answers. So I'm going to make a request, and then I'm going to take questions and answers. As Dream Mom, I request that you get out your cell phones. Get out your cell phones. Come on. You two in the other room. You two on the internet. Get out your cell phone or piece of paper. Get out something to write on. Our mission is ongoing. We have 4 initiatives in the DREAM pipeline. This is to bring DREAM work to the mainstream. They are individual dream facilitation, number 1. Number 2, developing dream groups of 8 to 10 people. Number 3, presenting Jungian and nightmare presentations, more presentations. Number 4, selling the book, The Dream Belongs to the Dreamer. Wiz is a resource for the dream method I created called subjective symbol immersion. So I'm asking you to go to 727-896-2626 and just send one of the numbers. What would you want? What would be helpful to you? Whoops. I think somebody just called me. Okay? So that way I get some feedback from you. Oh, stop. Sorry. Questions from attendees will be answered to the best of my knowledge. In the interest of time, anything off point will not be answered. If my answers aren't clear or not on the subject I talked about tonight that you expected, feel free to email me at dreammama@gmail.com before February 1st. I'll answer all emails about tonight at that time. Know that I greatly appreciate you attending tonight. And I greatly appreciate Director Hines, Hank Hines, Peter Tush. I have a list here that I forgot to start with, which is just the way it is sometimes. Kim McQuarrie, Joy Garrett, who introduced me, John and Tom, who are in that room back there. They were all very, very helpful in putting this together. But having the whole idea of the shape of dreams come to the Dali was one of my dreams come true. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, who's got questions?
Do you have any comments on dreams involving death or murder or that kind of thing that are recurring?
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
Oh, do you have any comments on dreams that involve murder or death of strangers?
Gee, maybe it's me. It could be me. But I just can't understand you.
Oh.
It's me.
Okay.
She asked about dreams involving murder and death. Do you have comments?
Murder and death. Are you calling them nightmares?
No, I don't think so. As more of a voyeur, watching something like that unfold.
Okay. When we have a dream that has violence in it, the first thing we need to do, I would say often, it's a compensation dream, that you're probably way too nice, and you build up all this anger, and you just want to act out on it?
Yeah.
Is that true?
It's funny because in the dream, they say, I don't need to go into my own personal dream, but in the dream they said, oh, there's somebody who matches your description they want to talk to about these murders, but it couldn't be you because you're too nice. They actually say that. That's what they say in my dream.
Now you know what a compensation dream is.
I have a question from next door. I'm Kim McQuarrie. I'm the director of programming, and I'm monitoring the room next door. And somebody had the question, do you think Dali ever achieved homeostasis?
It's me tonight. My allergies, I just can't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. It's just the way it is.
Do you believe that Dali achieved homeostasis?
Oh, absolutely not. There's no way in hell. I mean, no, in a word. I don't want to get into that. I have a whole presentation on all of this stuff. I don't want to divert from tonight. He did not receive homeostasis. Okay?
Speak as close as you can.
He wouldn't have needed Freud then.
So do our dreams protect us from our ego, or do our dreams protect the ego?
I think it's a good idea if the person just comes up here. Just come up here. I've got a bunch of allergies and.
Yes, okay.
You don't be afraid to come up here. I won't bite you.
Do our dreams protect our ego, or our ego protects our dreams?
Well, go to the thing I talked about, defense structures, right? And the lady here is worried about her dream about murder. Your defense structures will prevent you from, until you're ready, until you're psychologically ready. The ego ego can't compete with the unconscious. The ego's a little tiny tip at the top of the iceberg. The ego is not real. The ego is personas. We have our egos so we can create a persona to present to the world, that we feel comfortable and safe. But it's not authentic. Okay? It's something we manufacture. We wear certain clothes to certain places. We have to have certain things to feel better about ourselves. This is all ego-driven. There's nothing wrong with an ego. We need an ego, but we need a healthy ego. And a healthy ego is in homeostasis with their true self. You can't have an ego doing one thing and your unconscious doing another. That's what neuroses is. So if you can get the ego to accept their shadow, this is a whole nother presentation. Say, okay, I thought I was a nice guy, but my dream is telling me I'd like to kill somebody one day. You know, that's okay. It's a compensation. Does that answer your question?
I'm going to answer another question from
Next door, a gentleman wants to know if you could discuss the meaning of common recurring themes.
Repetitive dreams?
Yes.
Okay, yes. I call them the nagging mother dreams. And I think I mentioned it in here, but I'll mention it again because it's important. The nagging dream is the dream that relentlessly pursues you to get homeostasis. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And once you do it, the dream goes away. But a lot of people aren't ready to hear the message in a nagging dream. Don't marry that guy, don't marry that guy, don't marry that guy. And 2 years later, when they're getting divorced, I should have listened to that dream. Don't, or do. But they nag you And let me say something else. The defense structure is letting them nag you. So if you've got nagging dreams, it means your defense structure is permitting it. In other words, it won't hurt you. Dreams don't bring pain. They bring relief. I've never known a person that didn't work on a tough dream and not say, oh my God, if only I had. Trust me, I've done this 30, almost 40 years. And this is how it is. But we're all busy analyzing dreams. What point? Why bother if they don't lead to this homeostasis? And so that's why I'm excited about this presentation. I'm sure there's more I could have done, but I plan to continue researching it.
We have time for one last question. It is 7:01, and I saw a hand over
Bill
there.
Weller, stand
Oh,
up. No, I won't marry you.
My aura ring reports that I have 5 to 7 REM cycles a night. I'm rarely aware of any dreams I have. Rarely.
Well, I'll tell you what you can do. I had a client that just couldn't remember her dreams. And by the time she woke up, she couldn't remember to write them down. She got a voice-activated tape recorder, put it under her pillow. This is a true story. She came into the session, said, oh, I've got a dream. I'd love to work on it. And she presses the tape recorder, and it's not the dream she remembered. It's another dream she recorded in the middle of the night, unaware. And guess what? Now this is synchronicity. It all works together in the service of homeostasis. The dream she didn't remember but played to me is the one that she got the most benefit from. So put a voice-activated tape recorder under your pillow. I don't know, did you have sleep studies? Oh, and they told you had that many REMs?
Yeah.
Okay, well, and also a big question, I'll answer it because probably a lot of people are maybe thinking it. I don't remember my dreams. What do? I don't remember my dreams. Oh my God, I can't help. I can't get my homeostasis. You have intentions. You go to bed at night, try to chill out before you go to bed. When you go to bed at night, have an intention to dream. I'm going to dream tonight. And just go to bed. You didn't dream. The next night, you have the same intention and the same intention. And you become the nagging mother. And you will dream. The first time somebody had a breakthrough, they said, oh, I had a dream. I said, what was it? She says, well, it was only a little dream. I said, what was it? I wanted to tell you before she forgot it. And it was just a small little dream, but it was a beginning. And she felt so good. But you have to have intentions. You have to take it seriously. You know. And it's not everybody will, and that's okay. But for those who want to get the most out of this, to feel the most centered, to work through their traumas and their anger and all the other things we deal with every single day in this era of COVID, I'm surprised we're all not crazy. Okay, are there any questions? Any others? Well, I don't know. They haven't thrown me out. But we're officially over.
If you have time, I'll ask one if we have time.
If you want to come up here and ask me questions, I'll stick around for a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Velva. Round of applause, please.
Good. I remember, yes, you're the artist.
I'm Eric. Can I see my friends on
Yes, I remember.
My question is, say I've had a dream that I was an artist. So I had a dream that I was an artist. It was 20 years ago. I was never an artist at all before that. And in your opinion, is that something that I just had